The Requiem of Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel, a man who's garnered a lot of support recently as he announced his retirement some months ago. Sebastian wasn't loved once upon a time at his days in Red Bull. But this video isn't about that. This video is about Seb witnessing Seb's greatness being witnessed as he's been disrespected by all other fans over the course of his career. You could look at the stats and say, how is he disrespected? 54 wins, say 53. 4 titles, 122 podiums, 57 pole positions, 100 on front row starts, not including all his records. How could he be disrespected? Well, let's talk about it. This is episode 1 of the Requiem for Sebastian Vettel. The first season I'm going to be talking about, as you can see by the title, is, in my opinion, based on solely performance, his best season ever, 2017. 2017 was Seb's third year at Ferrari, having only had 3 wins for the Scuderia and being upset about 2016 as he thought he would have had a car to fight for the title, just to be the third fastest car and not win across the 2016 season. Sebastian took Gina, his SF70H, who looks very beautiful, into a title fight that he never should have been. Gina had a very good chassis and aero capabilities, but had a lackluster engine that would have made Enzo roll in his grave. Sebastian would win the first 2 out of 3 races with Gina, in Australia and Bahrain ahead with 68 points.
2 winless seasons in the last 3 years in Formula One. The man who was frustrated last season, the man who can see the crowd now rise to acclaim him, because Sebastian Vettel starts off 2017 by winning the Australian Grand Prix. Ferrari on top, down under.
P1, Sebastian. P1. What a race! You were the quickest. You were the quickest.
Yes, guys. Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
Vettel's at the peak of his powers, and he took pole in Russia, despite the terrible engine, just by 600ths. He finished P2 6 tenths behind Valtteri Bottas, who would get his first win.
Yes! P1. You deserve this one. You deserve this one. Master Vettel in Monaco.
Woo-hoo! Yes. Grazie ragazzi, grande lavoro.
He would then win at Monaco, which would put him 25 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Niki Lauda would famously say after that Grand Prix that Mercedes would need Vettel to retire once to stop him running away from the title. Vettel would make contact with Max Verstappen into turn 2 at Canada, turning his P2 start into P4 recovery. At Azerbaijan, after believing to be brake checked by Lewis,
Lewis is backing up the pack a little bit, and oh, he went into him.
Wait, he brake tested me. What the is going on?
Vettel literally just came alongside me and turned in and hit me.
Alas, it was only the 8th race, and he would finish where he started, in P4, still leading by 14 points. The fact that Seb gave himself the opportunity to win at Azerbaijan, despite the engine that he had under him, just shows how good he was that season. He would finish P2 in Austria and sit 20 points ahead of Hamilton going into the British Grand Prix. He would have a puncture on lap 50 down the Wellington Straight while in 3rd place after his teammate Raikkonen had a puncture before. This would drop him down to P7, losing valuable points, while Lewis would win, closing the gap just to 1 point. The next race at Hungary, Seb would get pole and lead off from the front, but he would get to what would seem to be suspension damage from the curbs as he saw his car pulling left on the straight on lap 5. His lap times would slow, and he would go on to win the Hungarian Grand Prix, as Raikkonen would protect him if the Mercedes 12 seconds behind would catch up and a Ferrari 1-2. He would be leading by 14 points going into Belgium. He would finish second with the fastest lap, despite Belgium being more of an engine-orientated track and still having that same engine in the back of his Ferrari. Ferrari were meant to bring in a major engine upgrade, but the new 0.9 liter oil burning regulations for Italy reduced the upgrades. Mercedes were still allowed to use 1.2 liter fuel burning engines as their engine was already used, while everyone, including the works teams, had to work with 0.9 liter oil burning, losing horsepower in the process. The Ferrari engine was shown off at Monza, or just how terrible it was, with Kimi and Seb qualifying 7th and 8th, 2.5 seconds behind Hamilton's pole time. They would be moved up 2 positions because of the Red Bulls having changed components after Parc Ferme. Vettel would carry his car to P3 in an underrated drive which would place him 3 points behind Lewis in the championship. Lewis would famously preach just how good Mercedes power was on the podium in front of the Tifosi.
Mercedes power is definitely better than Ferrari power, so it worked well this week.
But fear not, 3 points behind with 7 races left, and next was Sebastian Vettel's den, his playing ground, Singapore. At the time, Seb had 3 wins at Singapore. I meant 4. He had 4 wins at Singapore, and every single time he was on pole at Singapore, he would win. He won there in 2011, 12, 13, and 15 for Ferrari, famously. And his first pole to win conversion. Well, Seb would have a scintillating pole lap. Leaving it all on the track with a 1:39.491, improving his provisional lap time to take pole at Singapore. Seb would go to defend from Verstappen at the start, not seeing that Kimi got an even better start, leaving Max in a Ferrari sandwich before the 3 cars would make contact before turn 1. Kimi and Verstappen would instantly retire, and Seb would retire after spinning because of the incurring damage at turn 5. He would be seen with a big hole in the left side pod and the whole front wing missing. Niki Lauda would blame the accident on Sebastian, saying that why would he do such a dangerous move at such a crucial point in the championship. But to be fair to Sebastian, he couldn't see that Kimi got such a good start, as he could only see Max. And obviously, at Singapore, or in general, the driver that's leading defends from the second driver, unless it's like Russia, for instance. You'd want your teammate to get the slipstream instead. So basically, like Alonso in 2010, he defended heavily from Seb on the start just to keep the lead. And Seb just backed out of it, despite no one else getting better starts. But Seb backed out of it and stayed in second going into turn one. So I don't necessarily see why it would be his fault. But fear not. 6 races left, and next was Sepang, the track that Seb got his first win with Ferrari. Vettel would have an engine problem in FP2, leaving him in second gear, which Ferrari would change. And that was basically his final component change that he could have. Vettel's replacement engine in Q1 would see another issue on his first outlap, causing him to come back in. His engine would start but sounded terribly, and with 2.5 seconds to left, Ferrari wouldn't send him out, and he'd be P20 for the race. On his third, basically the battery, he said he felt the turbo not spinning and he had to pit. And Raikkonen would qualify 45 thousandths off of Lewis's pole lap, which could create the point that Vettel would have certainly taken pole position if he had the chance. Raikkonen's battery, which was a very similar issue to Seb's in qualifying, would cause him not to start the Grand Prix, and Vettel would come back to P4 while Lewis would finish second. Seb was only 34 points behind with 5 races left, and he would have to win all the remaining Grand Prix with Hamilton in second to win the championship. He would qualify P3 and start P2 at Japan, next Grand Prix. If Vettel had a good start, he might be able to overtake Lewis and prance into the distance. Except the mechanics were working on Vettel's car before the race could even start. When the race started, it was clearly noticed by everyone that Vettel would fall incredibly on the straights and that he had an engine problem. Seb was having a spark plug failure. He would retire on lap 4. Lewis would go on to win Japan, putting him 59 points above the German. Vettel would overtake Lewis into T1 of the United States Grand Prix from P2, and we get overtaken on P6 at lap 6 to finish second place. He'd be 66 points behind now, watching as his childhood dream, winning a championship for Ferrari, slips farther and farther away. Vettel would get pole at Mexico crucially, but with the engine not having power, he would get packed in by Verstappen going into turn 2, and into turn 3, having nowhere to go, he'd hit the back of Verstappen and then Lewis, as Lewis would try to overtake around the outside, losing a lot of his front wing. He would finish P4, but that wasn't enough, as Hamilton would win the Grand Prix, and Vettel would mathematically not be able to catch up to Lewis. He would take a consolation win at Brazil, his 5th win on the season, and finish officially 46 points behind after Abu Dhabi. This was Seb's most brilliant season. He carried a car that was second fastest by far with and Lewis Hamilton in the fastest car by far, the W08, having a terrible season, to be honest. It was one of Lewis's more worst seasons, as he had a car that he most likely should have run away with the championship, as Mercedes were getting better and better aero as the years would go on, as usually it was just the engine carrying them. They slapped tons of downforce on the car, put the wings all the way up. And Seb tried to take full advantage of this, but with Ferrari reliability, he couldn't make it. Which would lead us on to our second episode, which will be about 2018. Seb's most criticized title campaign. And quite possibly his most criticized season with Scuderia Ferrari. This has been Lewis. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe. If you didn't, you can hit the dislike button. Tell me why in the comment section down below. This has been Lewis. I'll see you guys later. Peace.